The Mesopotamians. Mesopotamia, a name many of us hear from time to time, is the land between the Tigris and Euphrates, and it's where civilization pretty much hit the start button. The Sumerians built the first cities, invented writing, cuneiform, and created the earliest laws. Then came the Akkadians and the Babylonians, each with empires, god-kings, and towering ziggurats. This place gave us the 60-minute hour, beer, astrology, and, basically, Civilization 1.0. So, how did it all disappear? They overused the land, turning rich soil salty and useless. And in wars, power struggles, and flooding rivers, the cities started collapsing. Crops failed, people fled, and temples were abandoned. The same rivers that made them thrive also helped wipe them out. Mesopotamians overfarmed, ruined their soil, and couldn't recover. This was a slow-motion collapse of the world's first great civilization. The Indus Valley Civilization. The Indus Valley was smart, peaceful, and way ahead of its time, until the rivers dried up and nature pulled the plug. Imagine cities with plumbing before pyramids were a thing. The Indus Valley Civilization, centered around Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, had grid layouts, drainage systems, standardized weights, and bustling trade networks. No giant statues, no war memorials, no kings barking orders. Just organized, peaceful cities that ran on community and commerce. Then there was complete silence. Cities abandoned, trade routes have gone cold, and no one is left to flush those ancient toilets. So, what happened to this civilization? Climate change likely played a leading role. Shifting monsoons dried up the rivers they depended on. Some scientists suspect tectonic activity rerouted the mighty Saraswati River, turning fertile land to dust. Without water, trade, or food stability, people scattered. There was no epic war, no fiery fall, just a slow, quiet fade into history. The Ancient Egyptian Civilization. Everyone knows the pharaohs' gold masks, pyramids, and endless mummy movies. But ancient Egypt wasn't one smooth ride from one dynasty to the next. It crashed multiple times. Let's talk about the Old Kingdom. It was Egypt's first big golden age. The pyramids of Giza were built back then. Pharaohs ruled like gods. But things went downhill fast. The Nile's flooding patterns changed. Less water meant failed crops. Famine spread, and people starved. At the same time, local leaders grew more powerful while the central government weakened. Civil war broke out. The kingdom didn't vanish entirely, but it shattered. Egypt kept doing this, rising, collapsing, then rebuilding under a new dynasty. Like history stuck in a restart loop. The Minoan Civilization. The Minoans lived on the island of Crete around 2000 BCE. They had beautiful palaces, advanced plumbing, colorful art, and a strange love for jumping over bulls. It was peaceful, elegant, like a Mediterranean fairy tale. Then the volcano Epthera, now Santorini, exploded. It was one of the biggest eruptions in history. Lava, ash, and tsunamis hit the region hard. Ports were destroyed, trade stopped, and life began to fall apart. Some people think the Minoans were the real inspiration for Atlantis. Plato described a rich island civilization that vanished in a single day. The Minoans didn't disappear overnight, though. After the disaster, they struggled to recover. Eventually, the Mycenaeans from mainland Greece showed up and took over. That was the final blow. The Minoan world faded, and Greece's next power players stepped in. The Mycenaeans Civilization. Let's talk about the Mycenaeans, an ancient Greek civilization that came before the famous ones, like Athens and Sparta. They lived around 1600 to 1100 BCE and were known for their strong cities, powerful kings, and connections to legends like the Trojan War. You've probably heard of Agamemnon, the guy who led the Greeks in the war against Troy. That story came from this civilization. The Mycenaeans were skilled warriors. They used bronze weapons and built huge stone walls around their cities, like they were always preparing for danger. But then, things fell apart. There were food shortages, earthquakes, and mysterious enemies from the sea, called the Sea Peoples. By 1100 BCE, their cities were abandoned. Their written language, Linear B, disappeared. Greece entered a dark age. No writing, no major buildings, no sign of the once great Mycenaeans. They vanished, and today, we're still trying to understand exactly why. The Olmecs Civilization. Long before the Maya or Aztecs ruled Mexico, there were the Olmecs. often called the Mother Civilization of Mesoamerica. They appeared around 1500 BCE, built complex societies, and then vanished like a magician's final trick. The most iconic thing they left behind was giant stone heads. Some are over 9 feet tall, each carved from a single piece of volcanic rock, with expressions so human it's almost eerie. But who do the heads represent? Kings? Athletes? Or something else? We don't know. They didn't leave any written records, no names, no stories, just stone. We still don't fully understand why the Olmecs disappeared. Some think floods wiped them out. Others believed climate shifts or political chaos did them in. Then, at some point, to jaguar worship and wonder if something darker happened. A vanished civilization, but its echoes still whisper in the jungle. The ancestral Puebloans, Anasazi Civilization. High above the desert floor, carved into cliffs, the ancestral Puebloans built entire cities. Mesa Verde, Chaco Canyon, homes with several rooms, all without metal tools or wheels. But by the late 1200s, they were gone. Whole regions abandoned. There was no written explanation, just traces in stone and legend. But what happened to them? Most experts point to a long, devastating drought. Crops failed, water dried up, and as survival became harder, communities may have clashed or scattered. The society unraveled. But their legacy lives on. The Hopi, Zuni, and modern Pueblo people still carry on their traditions, passed down by word, not book. History almost forgot them. The desert didn't. The Khmer Civilization. The Khmer Empire wasn't just powerful, it was genius. They didn't just build Angkor Wat, the world's largest religious monument, they built entire cities around it, with advanced canals and reservoirs and managed water like tech bros managed data. But by the 1400s, it all crumbled. A series of mega droughts followed by intense flooding wrecked their hydrology system. Trade routes shifted, and wars didn't help. Political reasons also contributed to the fall. Slowly, the people left, and the jungle moved in. Angkor's stone towers were swallowed by roots and vines. Its silence became louder than its past glory. Today, tourists stand in awe, but few grasp the fall. It wasn't a sudden collapse. It was a slow fade, reclaiming what once dazzled the world. The Nabatean Civilization. The Nabateans were desert masters, traders, builders, and magicians of stone. They carved Petra directly into canyon walls, controlling spice and incense routes across Arabia. Their city sparkled with water systems, amphitheaters, and tombs, all in the middle of nowhere. Then Rome came. Trade patterns shifted, earthquakes struck, and the Nabateans faded from history, absorbed into an empire that didn't care for their genius. Petra stood hollow. It was a ghost city with no footsteps, no markets, just empty grandeur. Today, it's a tourist dream, but behind the pink sandstone lies the story of people who once ruled the desert, and then simply stopped. The Roanoke Civilization. In the late 1580s, over 100 British settlers set up camp on Roanoke Island, one of the first English attempts to colonize the New World. Led by Governor John White, the group included families, farmers, and craftsmen hopeful for a new life. But when White sailed back to England for supplies, delays kept him away for 3 long years. When he finally returned in 1590, the colony was gone. Houses dismantled. No bodies, no signs of struggle. Just one cryptic word carved into a post: Croatoan. Clue or goodbye? Was it a message or a clue? The name referred to a nearby native tribe and island, but no one was ever found. Theories still swirl. Did they assimilate peacefully, or were they attacked? To this day, Roanoke remains a chilling historical vanishing act, and one of America's strangest enduring mysteries. The Hittite Civilization. Last but not least, this is one civilization that is known as the overachievers of the ancient world. In Bronze Age Anatolia, around 1600 BC, they mastered war, diplomacy, and bureaucracy. Then they vanished, and most people today think they're nothing more than a myth. But that's not true. People in this civilization had chariots, iron weapons, and so much more, before anyone else did. They were so advanced they even signed a peace treaty with Egypt, and once upon a time, in 1595 BC, they even sacked Babylon. But by 1200 BCE, the entire civilization had just collapsed. They fell to famines, rebellions, economic decline, and those mysterious sea peoples. and even their capital was burned and buried. With time, their legacy faded, and history forgot them. But then, in the 20th century, archaeologists discovered remains of their existence. Turns out that they weren't a minor civilization, we just temporarily lost their file.